Hello, so I'm here to fly the flag for early years and talk about the important role we have in building effective and long-lasting parent partnerships. Like many of you here, as well as being a teacher, I'm also a parent. I have two lovely girls who are 12 and 10. And a couple of years ago, when my oldest daughter was in year 6, I received an invitation to a SATS information evening, with a particular emphasis on supporting your child preparing for the grammar assessment. Now, at this point, I had 14 years experience teaching in primary school, not to mention a degree in primary education, and back when I was at school, a really positive experience of education. But I have to confess that this invitation filled me with somewhere between impending doom and sheer horror. And when I talked to my fellow parents, it emerged that I was not alone in that. However, I dutifully went along. I was quite impressed with the turnout. And what we received was calm reassurance from my daughter's wonderful Year 6 teacher. She acknowledged that we may have anxieties about the technicalities and the terminology to do with grammar, but she was confident that we were familiar with the concepts. She was able to signpost us to useful resources and offered her support, and I went away feeling so much better. But I also went away wondering about those parents who hadn't turned up, what had stopped them from engaging in that, and what the effect of that disconnect might be. This was just one of a number of incidents that have really got me thinking, both from a teacher perspective and a parent perspective, how we can better engage parents in their children's learning. And for me, that means starting in early years, getting them involved then, and then maintaining and growing that partnership as they move throughout school. For me, when I moved from Key Stage 1 to early years, one of the things that really struck me was the contrast in the amount of contact I had with parents. I went from not seeing very much of a parent to a situation where my nursery class are home visited before they start school. And then on a day-to-day basis, we're having contact and interactions with parents that just don't happen as children get older. This means we're really ideally placed to start building that partnership nice and early. We can work alongside parents on topics that don't scare them or intimidate them. Let's face it, if you're invited to a workshop about supporting reading through using picture books, it's a lot less intimidating than waiting till we're dealing with those fronted adverbials and subordinate clauses in Year 6. Hopefully, over time, then, we can build parents' confidence in supporting their children and grow their knowledge so that each year group simply builds upon what has gone before. Recently, I've been really fortunate to be part of a project aimed at raising early literacy standards. It was open to all the early years providers in our area, and those of us who were involved received speech and language training from ELCLAN. We received the resources and training for the Talk Boost intervention. And the National Children's Bureau delivered training on the Real Approach, developed by Cathy Nutt-Brown and Peter Hannon in Sheffield. They've all been really useful, but particularly successful with the Real Approach, because it brought opportunities to work alongside parents, giving them the skills that they need to support their children's learning. It draws upon the research from the Effective Provision of Preschool Education study, and as part of its remit, it looked to the early home learning environment. And one of the key findings was that for all children, the quality of that home learning environment was more important for their social and intellectual development than parents' education, occupation, or income. So what the parents do is more important than who they are. This is really, really empowering for our parents, particularly those who are lacking in confidence. It says to them, you can make a difference, whether you have a PhD and a 6-figure salary, whether you completed a degree but you're struggling to make ends meet because you're on a 0-hours contract, if you left school with no formal qualifications but set up a successful business, or if you left school with no qualifications and are living week to week on benefits, you can make a difference. There's been so much talk recently about issues around social mobility, and that's really important. It's good that we're talking about that. But if we're going to really tackle that issue, I think we need to accept that the attitudes and the influences of parents will almost always outweigh the work that we can do in school. That's not to say we give up on the idea, but we need to take those parents on the journey with us. So during our project, we delivered some literacy events, things like a visit to a local library, a writing workshop in school, and we invited lots of parents along. This enabled us to share key information with parents and then give them opportunities to put that into action straight away during practical activities with their children. We also offered a more in-depth approach with a smaller group of parents and children with individual home visits and sessions in school where we offered one-to-one tailored activities. They got some free resources, and we took the time to talk to parents about what kind of support that they would like. And during this project and the work that's followed since, some of the parents had some real light bulb moments, and I'd like to share a few of them with you now. I would imagine that some of these stories are fairly universal, and you will probably be able to think of families and parents in your own schools who may share similar experiences. One mum that I worked particularly closely with throughout the project built up enough trust to share with me her insecurities about her own abilities as a parent. She told me she'd had a really difficult time in school. She'd got a supportive extended family, but she sometimes felt in their shadow. And it was really difficult to listen to her telling me that she wanted to be a good parent, but she really didn't know if she had the skills to do it. It was difficult to hear because I could see what she couldn't. She was doing a brilliant job. Her daughter was a sparky, articulate 3-year-old with boundless enthusiasm and an endless curiosity. But this mum's self-confidence was so low that she genuinely couldn't recognise the good job that she was doing. I'm pleased to say that throughout the project that I was working with her and the school year as a whole, she really grew in confidence, and for me that was a real highlight of the year to see that transformation. For other parents, it's a lot less emotional and it's more about their understanding of child development. At a writing workshop, we talked about the prerequisite skills for becoming a writer. We talked about developing rich language. We talked about the physical strength and gross motor skills that were needed, and also about how we develop the fine motor skills to give them the dexterity to become a proficient writer. I'd got a core group of really committed parents who desperately wanted to support their children, and to that end had been buying their 3 and 4-year-olds lots and lots and lots of handwriting books. And one particular boy was really totally disinterested. He was not having a bar of it. And his parents were really concerned. They came to me worried that he would go into reception class behind as a writer. But when we talked through the different things that they could do to support him that would engage him, they tried out lots of fine motor skills activities. The relief was so evident in their faces when they realised that there was another way, there was an alternative. For other parents, that light bulb moment came when they get to see in action what they've been hearing about. As part of our school's commitment to developing meaningful partnerships with parents, we try and create lots of opportunities to have parents into school. And central to this are the parents' mornings that held twice each term for every year group. They tend to take the format of a practical activity which parent and child work on together, and then the children have the chance to show off their latest learning, and the parents can observe that in action. And a group of reception parents recently really benefited from watching a phonics session. The children were proud to show off their skills. The parents could see how they were applying this. They could see the modelled good practice of the teacher and were able to take this back to the support they were giving at home. It was also a great opportunity for the teacher to address any misconceptions that were there. So these are just a few of the ways that we've been working to develop long-term engagement and involvement with parents. As educators, we usually have quite a clear idea of what we need from parents. We might ask that they read a certain number of times a week with their child. We certainly ask that they bring them to school every day on time and with the correct equipment. We ask them their support with homework. But sometimes what we sometimes forget to do is take the time to ask what those parents need from us to really successfully engage with their children's education. For some, it will just be that reassurance, that confidence boost, you're on the right track. For others, it will be alternative ideas of what they can do to support their child. And for others, it will be the chance to see the learning in action. But if we really value and recognise the potential impact of having meaningful parental engagement, why wouldn't we take the time to find out what we can do to make that happen? To finish with, I wonder how many of you have thought, I wish I had more time, if only I had that bit more time with this student. And unfortunately, this is not the point where I can give you all a Harry Potter time turner. But instead, hopefully, the quote from John Hattie's Visible Learning Study will give you a little insight into how you can buy that little bit of extra time to make a difference. He concluded that the effect of parental engagement throughout a student's education was the equivalent to adding 2 or 3 years to that student's education. If we take the time to listen, to really find out what our parents need from us to fully engage with their children's learning, we can build partnerships that enthuse and empower our parents, that have long-lasting benefits for our students, and which create a climate where social mobility becomes a real possibility.